She woke up to sterile lights and a silence so loud it pressed against her chest. At first it was confusion, then the flood. The realization didn't come with the pain, that came later. It was the emptiness where her right leg used to be, the absence, the betrayal of her body. The days blurred after that. Visitors came and went, but her mind stayed stuck in one moment: spinning metal, shattered glass, the smell of burnt rubber, and her own scream swallowed by the dark. The girl who once flew across tracks with the wind in her hair was now anchored by a stump in a storm of grief. Doctors spoke gently. Therapists offered hopeful plans, but she could only hear the silence of her own dreams collapsing. The mirror in her hospital room became an enemy. She wouldn't look at it. She couldn't. The girl she used to buy Olympic hopeful, state record holder, the girl with goals charted out like stars was gone. There were nights when she would wake up in the dark and reach for a leg that wasn't there. Phantom pain was cruel, but not as cruel as the memory of running. She remembered what it felt like to sprint, not just the speed, but the power, the grace, the control. And now she couldn't even stand. Her mother tried to help, kind words, soft hands, but every attempt to comfort her felt like a reminder that she was broken. And then there was her father, always quiet. He hadn't come to visit, not once. Rumors whispered through hospital halls that he couldn't bear to see her like this. But she knew the truth. He blamed himself. He was the one who drove the car. The weight of that silence, of everything unspoken, began to crush her. She withdrew, smiled politely, nodded at nurses, but inside, she was curling in on herself, disappearing into a world where she could still run, still win, still be whole. It was NT until a nurse handed her a brochure, bold letters, reading adaptive sports therapy, that something flickered. Not hope, not yet. Just a thread of curiosity. Her fingers traced the edge of the page. Paralympics, training, prosthetics. It felt like someone else's life, not hers. And yet, that night, for the first time in weeks, she didn't dream of falling. She dreamed of running again, not fast, not clean, but real. And when she awoke, something inside her whispered, what if? The first time she met him, he didn't smile, just glanced at her leg, then at her face, and said, "You here to work or to wallow?" She blinked. The man in front of her was wiry, older, skin weathered like leather, walking with a limp that spoke its own story. He introduced himself simply as Coach Ray. No sympathy, no small talk, just a stopwatch around his neck and a clipboard full of challenges. The rehab center's track was old, cracked in places, nothing like the polished stadiums she once knew. But there was something raw and honest about it, like it didn't care who you used to be. It only cared if you showed up. Ray didn't coddle. He pushed her, not just physically, but emotionally. You want people to feel sorry for you, or do you want to make them shut up and watch? Some days she hated him. Other days she hated herself. The prosthetic leg rubbed her skin raw. The balance drills left her in tears. Once, she collapsed mid-run and screamed, not in pain, but in rage. Ray walked over, looked down, and said quietly, "Good, now that the anger is out, let's start training." The days bled together. Slowly, she began to find rhythm again. Not like before, friend. This new rhythm wasn't about grace, it was about grit. Every movement demanded intention. Every step came with fire. But the more she moved, the more she began to believe her body could be trusted again. In the quiet moments after training, Ray would share slivers of his own past. He had lost his leg in a motorcycle crash when he was 23. Back then, no one talked about second chances. He made his own. "You think the world owes you healing?" he asked one afternoon as she sat catching her breath. "It doesn't. But if you demand it from yourself, it listens." She started coming early, stayed late, fell asleep, sore but satisfied. Her body was changing, yes, but, more importantly, her mind was shifting. One day, Ray handed her a registration form. Paralympic trials. "You're not ready to win, but you're ready to try." Fear clutched her chest. She wasn't that girl anymore, the one who ran with gold in her eyes. But when she looked at the form, she didn't see a race. She saw a chance to forgive herself. "Why would I do this?" she whispered. Ray looked at her not with softness, but with pride. "Because you can. And that's the most powerful reason there is." The sun was barely up when she stepped onto the track. The stadium was quiet, but not empty. A few early arrivals filled the stands, mostly family, some trainers, and a handful of competitors. But all she could hear was the thud of her heart, steady and heavy. Her race wasn't until later in the day, but she needed time. Time to walk the track, to feel it, to remember that this was her ground, too, not just for the girl she was, but for the woman she had become. Her fingers trembled slightly as she adjusted her prosthetic. The pressure points were familiar now, still uncomfortable, but no longer unbearable. She glanced up and caught her reflection in the glass of the surrounding wall. For a second, she almost didn't recognize herself, not because of what was missing, but because of what had changed. Her eyes no longer looked lost, they looked ready. Ray appeared beside her without a sound, holding a water bottle and his usual blank expression. "You're not racing the clock today," he said. She nodded. "I know, I'm racing fear." When the time came, she took her place on the starting line. The other athletes, all seasoned, some with medals to their names, didn't look at her with pity. They nodded. One even smiled, and that more than anything settled her nerves. This wasn't charity, this was a challenge. The gun fired. Her body surged forward, not smooth, not flawless, but powerful. Every step was an effort, a battle, a decision. Her breath came sharp, her muscles screamed, and still, she moved. People in the stands began to rise, slowly, as if sensing they were watching something sacred. Halfway through, her leg buckled slightly. She stumbled. The roar in her ears dimmed, replaced by that old voice, "You're not good enough." This was a mistake, but then she remembered Ray's voice, sharp like gravel. That's enough." She pushed, not for the win, but for the finish. Each stride carved deeper into her doubt. Each breath clawed past the fear. And when she crossed the line last but upright, something inside her broke open. The crowd stood, not for her time, but for her truth. And in the stands, near the far corner, her father stood too. Their eyes met. He didn't smile, didn't cry, but he raised his hand and placed it over his heart. That was enough. She walked off the track to Ray's waiting hand. No words, just a firm grip, an unspoken respect. She didn't need medals. She didn't need cheers. She had herself back. Sometimes, the finish line isn't where the race ends, but where we begin again. Her story reminds us that loss doesn't erase our worth. It reshapes us, refines us, and reveals the quiet strength we never knew we had. She didn't return to the podium. She returned to herself, and in that, she found everything. If her journey moved you, let it live beyond this video. Share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more stories that speak to the soul.